Everybody wants to do Kirblog. Well, not everybody. I mean, just whoever I can convince. I wasn't able to convince my house guest. I have a sick Mike Lucas in the background visiting. Say hi, Mike. Good. He hates you and didn't want to join me for a topic. This is the first of two Kirblogs that I'm doing before I go away to Fanime with Mike and some other friends of ours. I hope I'll be seeing some of you there. This will be going up on the Saturday of that con. But anyway. So this is a question that comes from Ope D-Day 2001. Maybe you've covered it before, but what's your take on fan interaction? As a fan and as a creator, I imagine that things sometimes look a bit different for you. This is a good one, and actually very well placed, because just yesterday morning, I'm recording this on Thursday the 21st, so on Wednesday of this past week, I was invited to do a lecture up at SCVi by a fan, Kai Jordan. If you're listening, thank you very much for the invite. And I got to talk for an hour to a bunch of high school students about what it is that I do, and how much I like, how what I do with for a living, and how I've gotten to where I am, blah blah blah, etc. And I don't know if I particularly had any fans at that, aside from Kai, obviously, because he was the one that brought me in. He knew my stuff already. And also, not that I'm not guesting at Fanime this weekend, but I've had obviously the chance to guest at some conventions and do some panels there and everything. And that's been a lot of fun. I think that everybody, when they reach any kind of point where they have some sort of following, big or small, because I don't claim to be anything of any major significance, obviously, but I think that you have a certain sense of responsibility, both to yourself and fans. In terms of the interaction between them. Matt Wilson, who was on the Kirblog like a week or two ago, he, I think, said this. He might have said this on Twitter or maybe like his Blogspot or something like a long time ago, but he was talking about how there should be limitations for reasons that I think are mutually beneficial for both the, I guess, celebrity, quote unquote, and the fans themselves, because not so much, I guess, in like that, never meet your heroes kind of thing. Because I've met a lot of my heroes, and I've gotten to work with a lot of them, or at least become friendly with them. And I think what you kind of have to realize is that like everybody's a person. There's very, very few people, even like real celebrities, like Hollywood actors or whatever, like. They're all human beings, and there's very few people that are genuinely like, I'm so up my own ass that I can't, be seen talking to you heathens or whatever. I think that you definitely, when you're in that position, you do have to protect yourself a little bit, because, there are unfortunately people that take it a little bit too far. There are stalkers. There are generally people that can be a little uncomfortable, especially in public situations. So there definitely has to be like sort of a line that shouldn't be crossed. But I think it's to the same extent as lines that shouldn't be crossed between people in general, regardless of, whether like I grew up with your stuff, or I like your stuff, or I liked you in that movie, or your cartoon, or whatever, that thereof. I would say for me, I've had pretty much all nothing but pretty positive fan interactions. There's been like a few minor things, like nothing that's ever been like that catastrophic, or else it would be sticking out of my mind. It's actually funny. I think like maybe the closest negative thing, if you want to define it that way, that I've experienced is that I've met I guess subsects of fans of my stuff, because I have like the people that grew up with my stuff on Newgrounds, or people that watched just Brawl Taunts on YouTube or whatever. There are really hardcore fans that, it's a small amount of them, but there's super hardcore fans of the original TV Tome adventures from years ago, and who don't, are not exactly fond of Tome. I'll just put it that way. You know who you are. By the way, we have laundry going on in the background. I hope if you're hearing that, I apologize, but we're kind of on a short time span here. Anyway, but other than that, and it's all of that, is stemming from like, hey, we like your stuff, or like, we want your stuff to be better because we like it and we want to like it more, or whatever. That's I think the worst that I've experienced. I've never had like any like, really that awkward people that I haven't just been able to deal with on my own. I haven't ever had to like call security or anything major like that. And it just comes back to the fact that I haven't reached a pinnacle to where like that would even come up in the first place. But that aside, I think also, in my case, I've grown to be, and I think also several other like internet people, celebs or otherwise, whatever you want to define that as, I guess. I think a lot of us understand this too because we were all similarly in a position. I'm a fan. I've been to conventions, I've been to public things where, or like emailed people that I look up to and etc. And I know what it's like to to be in that perspective of like, I have you on a pedestal in my head and like, I look up to you and what you did really affected me. I will say, I guess on a little slight tangent. Okay. I've heard a lot of really amazing stories of like, people are sick and like they're watching a show and then like, they'll go to like an actor that was on that show and be like, oh, like I was feeling really down and I watched the show and it really meant a lot to me and just wanted to say thanks for your great work on that. That's awesome. I love hearing stuff like that. I will say, I think that the whole like, because I've seen a few people, not very many, but I've seen a few people go this far where it's like they kind of associate the person that was on the show that they liked, that voiced the character they liked or whatever. This is just an example. I'm sure there's other combinations of this, but where it's like they think like, you saved me. It's like, no, you either saved yourself or the doctor saved you or the firefighter saved you or whatever. This actor who recorded a part on the show or whatever, or was in this movie or something that you watched while you were sick, didn't save you. The thing that they were in made you feel better while you were, getting better. So, I mean, and those are rare cases, but I just think that that's a little too like, all right, like that's the epitome of you're placing somebody on a pedestal in your head of like, they are like more than human to me, and, but even I guess the lesser extent of that is like, when you look up to somebody, when you not just so much idolizing, but just like, oh, like they really did this cool thing that inspired me, or I just really enjoyed what they do or whatever. That's great. But I think that there is like, it's a level of bias that I guess kind of comes in, and it's something that I guess kind of programs into people's minds a little bit. It's why sometimes I'm happy when I meet people like who are, in the industry or whatever, and I don't know who they are, because then I'm more prone to just talk to them like a normal person. And I mean, I tend to do that even if I do know who they are now, because I've learned how to just have a professional attitude. But in general, I think it just makes it easy because I have no thought about anything. We actually just met somebody recently, a friend of ours, this guy, Brian Newton, who's a director at Warner Brothers Animation. He works on Teen Titans. I didn't know who he was. I just knew that he was a friend of our friend Steve Yurko from the One Piece podcast. And we just got to talking about like Dragon Ball and like anime and shit, and we had a great time. And I wasn't like, I have to network with this person because he works on Teen Titans and he can get me a job and blah, blah, blah. I didn't have any thought of that because I was just like, oh, you're just a cool guy and we're connecting on this stuff. But in general also, like, I think because of what I've learned from past experiences where it's like, all right, I don't want to come off too like, I love your stuff so much, and oh my god, I don't want to be too like overbearing about it to people, and because of that, I think that's part of the reason why I've also been very fortunate to make in the last couple of years friends out of some of those people. I mean, like, Ben Diskin, who's been on the show a few times now, I grew up with his work and was a fan of his stuff. I mean, granted, in his case, he was a fan of my stuff also, as it turned out, which probably made it easier. But Mona Marshall, who, I mean, she's been to my house several times now, since I worked with her about a year ago on Tome Season 2. And by just being cool and being straight up and professional, like, she's become like my surrogate mom since I moved here. From my perspective too, I mean, actually, hell, I didn't even think to mention this before. A lot of the people that are working on Tome were people that, some of which I knew and were still friends with, but they had seen my stuff and they were fans of it. I mean, Jordan, for instance, who's animating some stuff on episode 14 right now. I mean, she was a big TTA fan, and I immediately thought to have her on the show because I got to know her and she seemed really cool. And and her artwork was fantastic, and so from a professional standpoint, she joined on board, and now she's a friend. And Fooly I knew from way back on, like, when Fireball 20XL existed, and he had seen my stuff before, and he, I knew his work was fantastic as well. So I guess in that case, I guess it was more of a case of, we're fans of each other, but they were fans of the original TTA stuff, and then I brought them on board the new incarnation of it. Now, on that same kind of note, and I think actually Mike and I have both maybe had some first and second-hand experiences with this. Sometimes people and companies will prey on the fact that you are a fan and will take advantage of that. In the case of, like, for instance, if you're a freelance artist, and Matt and I talked about this as well in terms of, like, working for free and all that stuff. Sometimes it's like, oh, you're a fan of this thing? Oh, well, come work on this thing with us, and we'll pay you nothing or not very well and not what you deserve for the really hard work you're putting in, because we're just kind of taking advantage of the fact that, whoa, I'm working on this thing that I grew up with, or that I really like, or whatever. They just have that kind of, like, perception of, like, yeah, because I'm a fan. And that's also that's slimy of them, but that's also letting yourself be taken advantage of. And going a bit further, I'm not going to go too deep into this one, but another example that I have a major moral issue with is, let's just say that there are people who, like, say, go to conventions, and, they get a little too close to some of their fans, to a point where it's like, okay, you're taking advantage of, in some cases, even kids. Even if, like, I'm 18, it's like, no, but you're still a kid, and this person is, like, not, so that's not cool. That I am not okay with. I have major, major, major moral problems with that. I know very few people that do that indulge in those type of things in the first place, thankfully, but the fact that it exists makes me upset. And that's also part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this as well. It goes back to the point about how there needs to be a line of, and where do you draw that line? I think it comes down to the level of, I guess, professionalism, not in like an industry networking kind of way, but just like a humanistic standpoint of just being cool, being professional, being not too, like, overbearing or whatever. Because, nowadays, like, the extent that I kind of bring it to is if I meet somebody, I'm just like, oh, dude, like, I loved your work on whatever, it's like, oh, that's awesome, thanks, just kind of, that's the end of it. And sometimes, like, if we'll talk about, like, oh, what was it like working with this guy, or was it like working on this thing, etc., because I'm genuinely interested, but I don't try to be too, like again, overbearing about it. That's kind of my perspective. So I'm also, in that way, kind of going back to the bit about I've been there. I understand when, like, if I meet people who are like, oh, I'm sorry, I'm kind of nervous or whatever. Like, I always try to just describe, like, hey, like, don't worry about it. I'm usually very just like, I don't put on faces, like, much at all, if ever, around people. I try to just, I think if anything, I just try to behave myself, because I'm a little rambunctious and over the top at times. But I'm usually just like, hey, man, like, nice to meet you. Like, what's up? I'm not like, hi, oh, that's great to meet you. I don't like to do that, because I would prefer to just be myself. And because I feel like that's also more, like, disarming of, like, hey, chill out, don't be too nervous or whatever. And those are in the rare cases when I get to meet people who, like, oh, like, I watched Home, or, or whatever, depending. And, and like, still to this day, I think I'm still kind of learning things about that, because at the same time, I'm still learning things about not being too much of a fan to the point where it makes me look like an unprofessional scrub. So there's that. But, I think, but I do get it too, because, it's stemming from a place of, like, excitement and, like, enthusiasm, and, even if sometimes it can be misplaced, or, like, sometimes it can go a little too far, it's usually never meant with any kind of negativity in mind. It's meant to be like, I really care about this thing, and, like, I'm putting emotional investment and time into this, and and that's why I think, like, it's worth being appreciated. It's not like, oh, fuck these people, whatever, I don't care, like, that's not cool either, and that's not so much a moral thing I have a problem with. It's more of just, be appreciative. Like, in my case, I'm just ever appreciative that anybody gives a shit about anything that I do. So I try to just keep that perspective in mind as much as I possibly can, so I'm not just, like, getting jaded, because I'm jaded about a lot of things, not too much, thankfully, because I try to keep myself pretty grounded, but with this in particular, I try to be as humble as I can, and as appreciative as I can of, what it is that I have, and and that's thanks to the fact that, again, all of you guys and gals and everything in between listening have been so cool, and nobody's been too weird or too annoying or too overbearing, really. Like, again, there's very few examples I can think of where I've had to deal with stuff like that before. So I guess just to wrap it up, whether you are a fan or you have fans, if you're somebody listening that does, just be respectful, be cool. Sometimes you can even make some friends or two out of it in the process. And, I think just remembering that everybody's a human being and nobody's like greater than thou because they did something that you like or any, that they're a combination of. And then I think we together as one can all live together happy and thing good. Clearly, I've run out of steam on this topic. I'm tired. It's been a long fucking week, as Mike can attest as well. Mike, attest to the fact that this has been a long week. Yeah. That'll do it. So I guess thoughts, first of all. Let me know what you think about this. If you have anything further to add to it, I'd be curious to hear the perspective from other folks, especially if you're somebody who has fans in particular. If you want to weigh in on any other parts of this, I would love to hear what you have to say. And if you are a fan, tell me about your experiences with that, and have you learned any lessons from interacting with people that you look up to, etc. Let me know. I have another Kirblog already set to come after this. It's going to be my thoughts and experiences with Teen Titans. It was a question that was asked a long time ago. And that'll be – I recorded that before this one, but it'll be coming out on Tuesday of this next week coming out. So look forward to that. And in the meantime, again, if you're at Fanime this weekend or know anybody that's going and want to let them know, I hope maybe I'll see some of you guys there. Be sure to go hit up and buy stuff from Mike Lucas in the Artist Alley. Right, Mike? Yes. Do that. Give him money. And Martin Billany is in the dealer's hall as well, selling Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge stuff. And also, in case you didn't see the video ad thing about it, I will be doing the Bonsai Arcade panel with Kajit Western Durant on Sunday night at 9 to midnight. So hope you'll show up to there, and maybe I'll see you there as well. And that'll do it. So thanks everybody for listening, and I'll see you all, I guess, in about a week on the next new Kirblog that I'll be recording after these two that are buffering things time. Bye.